I have two stories to tell you. Both of these stories actually happened to me.
You know, I immediately distrust people when they say, this story actually happened to me. But you know what, Steve? This is a Halloween special. Why don't you try and spooky it up?
Which one do you think haunts me to this day?
So that's a little bit better, but I think I'm gonna have to pull someone in to make it feel a little more Halloweeny-y.
I haven't seen this one, so let's take a look at some clips. I know it's gonna be scary. Oh!
For a more complete story of the beaver, why not contact the Canadian Wildlife Service in Ottawa?
The first story happened about 15 years ago. I was home visiting my family, hanging out in the garage of my parents' house with two other men, an older male relative and a friend of the family who was maybe 10 years older than myself who had stopped in for a visit. I'll call this friend Deke. We were drinking beer, talking about work. This was long before my YouTube career, when I had a proper job. At one point, Deke started to tell us something. Then he paused, seemed to reconsider what he was about to say.
Was he gonna tell you that he buried his dog in an Indian burial ground?
Then he said, "Well, I guess it's okay to tell this. We don't have any nigger lovers here."
Even Count Floyd wasn't scared of that, and I get scared real easy. Come on, boys, let's roll that film a little further ahead and let's see a good, frightening part of that movie.
I don't remember what Deke's story was about. All I remember from that point on is that I said nothing. I sat there and listened as though I was perfectly okay with what Deke had just said, which, for all practical purposes, I was.
So let's get serious for a second. I think most people would agree that what Deke said was ignorant and quite frankly disgusting, given the historical connotation of that phrase. That one line tells us all we need to know about Deke. But what I find interesting is that Steve here views inaction as acceptance of what was said. It's almost as if he wants to present the idea that he cannot live with himself unless he's telling people why they are wrong.
Okay, that's the first story.
There's gotta be a scarier part to that movie than that, kids.
The second story takes place a couple of years after that. I was at work, still in my pre-YouTube proper job phase. I worked maintenance at a truck stop. Part of my job was to check the restrooms every hour, make sure they were clean, fully stocked.
Well, I would say checking truck stop washrooms is in fact horrifying.
All of that. Sounds like fun, right?
Look, Steve, I really don't need to know about what you consider fun. I don't need to hear about how you'd be the guy tonguing the inside of the toilet bowl rim while masturbating to a picture of your father with tears rolling down your face while waiting for the big burly truck driver to slap you around and take you violently without your consent.
I can assure you it was exactly as fun as it sounds.
Don't worry, Steve, I know you're not a disgusting pervert. I mean, your wife would never allow it.
I was in the men's room, wiping down the sinks, when a customer walked up to the sink next to me. And he said, as he began to wash his hands, "Do you know how to get to..." And then he said the name of this.
The graveyard? The haunted house over at the side of town? Ooh, the quarry where the police found all the bodies decapitated?
Said the name of this tire place that was nearby.
God damn it, Steve, you suck at telling scary stories.
I already asked that nigger that works here, but he couldn't tell me, he continued, referring to a coworker of mine.
Steve, you have to realize that some people, even though it's a small amount, are just naturally assholes. They'll do stupid stuff and say really stupid things, and no matter what you do, you cannot get through to them. Just like how people make response videos to you and somehow it just doesn't penetrate.
I finished wiping off the faucet, and I put my rag down, and I said to the customer, "Can you not say nigger?"
See, I don't agree with Steve here. I mean, when you're in a bathroom confrontation, you have to shit or get off the pot. My response to the man would be, "Sorry, sir, you're going to have to leave and don't bother coming back."
And he said, "Can I not say it?" I guess so. And I said, "Because I'd like to help you, but it's hard when you talk that way to me." My hands were shaking. I was as nervous as I've ever been in my life, and I probably looked it. And I stared right in his eyes for a second. And then I turned away.
Magically transforming back to a man that has absolutely no fucking spine.
And told him how to get to the tire place as I resumed my work.
Wasn't that scary? Huh?
Here is my question. Of those events in my life, which one do you think I regret more? Which one do you think haunts me to this day? Which one do you think I would give anything to go back and relive and do differently?
Now, some of you might be wondering why I took a less than charitable position with Steve here, why I threw the jabs, which isn't usually my style. Well, it's because he's a liar. He, and many others like him, set up this society of false people who have no other real purpose but to signal their virtue to other like-minded individuals. I mean, who honestly believes that he would give up anything to go back in time to tell the family friend that he didn't like what he had to say? Would he give up his house, his YouTube channel, his security, his wife? Okay, maybe his wife, but the point still stands. He wouldn't do that. And quite frankly, I don't even believe his stories. I mean, who needs to read a teleprompter when they're retelling a vivid memory? I don't. I can tell you exactly what happened in key moments of my life, and Steve represents this as one of his biggest regrets. Seriously, watch his eyes.
The first story happened about 15 years ago. I was home visiting my family, hanging out in the garage of my parents' house with two other men, an older male relative and a friend of the family who was maybe 10 years older than myself, who had stopped in for a visit. I'll call this friend Deke.
And I'm sorry, but I can't let that stand. If you believe in something, you don't need to make up stories. But you do if you have to rally the troops. Try to solidify your viewer base because your videos simply don't have the drawing power they once did. To Steve, it seems that spewing out untruths to people is a necessary evil to avoid what really terrifies him, what keeps him up at night this Halloween, the death of his channel. And once again, if you like my content, please be sure to share, like, and subscribe. It really helps me out and keeps me motivated to keep on making these videos. Thanks a ton and have a good one.